Well, hello good people, and welcome back to the channel. As many of you already know, I have been reviewing the show Our Kind of People, which comes on Fox on Tuesdays. Well, I was recently asked to give some additional insight on how I feel about the story and its characters. And in several of my episode reviews, I've had the habit of comparing Our Kind of People to the show Empire. And this was for two reasons. One, because Our Kind of People comes from some of the same people who worked on Empire, and two, because there were several Empire influences in the storytelling, and even some of the characters in the show seem like they're based on Empire characters. So for the purposes of this video, I'll be sharing my thoughts on the main characters of Our Kind of People, as well as my issues with the storytelling for the past 6 episodes. First, we're going to start off with Angie. The story of Our Kind of People primarily follows the point of view of the protagonist Angela Vaughn, aka Angie. We are introduced to Angie traveling with her daughter Nikki and Aunt Patricia from Boston to Oakland Bluffs to start a new life of sorts. While Angie's main motivation for going to Oak Bluffs was to spread her mother's ashes, it involves to Angie wanting to create generational wealth for Nikki in the future to come. And it involves even further to Angie wanting to claim what is rightfully hers. If that sounds familiar, then you're right, because that's how Cookie from Empire was written during her first season. During that season, Cookie was considered the outcast in Lucius's world of luxury and the finer things, and despite Lucius' attempt to buy her off and keep her quiet, Cookie resists because it's her personal quest to get what is rightfully hers. Well, I can understand why Cookie would be so invested in achieving her goal, because her character has been through a lot and deserved just compensation. But Angie, I don't really understand why she's trying so hard to fit in with a group of people who want nothing to do with her. She's been embarrassed and publicly humiliated by the Duponts on multiple occasions, and she was even given a financial incentive by Leah to leave them alone, but Angie declines the money. And from a logical point of view, I don't understand. Sure, Angie wants to get into the incubator program, which would help her small business. Sure, she wants to clear her mother's name in Oak Bluffs, despite not having the resources or the investigative skills to do so, and sure, her mother's shop has some sentimental value to her. But she's still in an area of town with powerful people who don't want her there, and they could torpedo her business or kill her at any given time if they so choose to do so. I know it's a show, but it doesn't make much sense from a storytelling perspective. Nikki is Angie's teenage daughter. The story with her was that Angie left Boston with her due to Nikki's issues with substance abuse as well as her anger management problem. Leaving all that she knew behind was considered to be a fresh start, but in Oak Bluffs, it doesn't take Nikki very long to get involved in some trouble. Now, I was expecting Nikki's issues with anger management and substance abuse to be troublesome for her at some point in the season, but so far, they haven't. Sure, Nikki mouthed off at Angie several times in the beginning of the season, but when it came time for Nikki to carry that same energy to Lauren, she punted the ball several times. I'm glad that Nikki finally stood her ground against Lauren, but by that time it was a little too late to be believable. I also wasn't a fan of Nikki allowing herself to get caught up in the Taylor and Lauren mess, but I'll get to that later. Patricia Williams is also known as Aunt Piggy, and she serves as the voice of reason to Angie and Nikki. And I think it's criminal how the show has used a legendary acting talent such as Debbie Morgan in the series. For most of the show, she's been reduced to being a vessel of wisdom to her kin. That is, until the random scene of her and Teddy Franklin meeting in the middle of the woods, where it was revealed that Aunt Piggy used to be a thug back in the day. It is this scene in which we learn how dangerous Teddy really is, and Patricia withholding this info from Angie seems to be uncharacteristic for her on the show. I hope going forward that the show does more with her character. Up next is the good old Teddy Franklin, and in my opinion, Teddy Franklin is Lucius Lyons reincarnated, because their similarities are entirely too strong to be ignored. Lucius has Empire, Teddy has Franklin Holdings. Both are egotistical, manipulative, evil, and they care about legacy as well as family above all. They are both willing to make the necessary sacrifices to achieve certain goals, and they aren't afraid to get a little blood on their hands, literally speaking. Furthermore, the storyline of Teddy revealing that he has Parkinson's disease reminds me of when Lucius thought he was sick in the earlier episodes of Empire. Turns out that Lucius lived to survive his illness, and I predict the same will happen with Teddy. My only question is, who would try to take Teddy Franklin out like that? The obvious answer would be Leah or Raymond Dupont, but I don't think the show will be that lazy in its writing. My money is on either Olivia Dupont or Quentin Dupont, but we shall see how the story plays out. But mark my words, if I see Teddy kill someone this season, show up at that person's funeral, cry at the funeral, and vow to get justice on behalf of the deceased, I will surely quit watching the show right then and there. Leah Dumont is the daughter of Teddy and the wife of Raymond. Her character reminds me of a mix between Anika and Cookie, mainly because of her sense of entitlement, her moments of being evil, but she's also after Franklin Holdings, and she's willing to do what she can for her children. Throughout this season, her character has largely been consistent with this, as well as her disdain for Angie, until the last episode in which she magically turned off her hate for Angie and directed it towards Teddy, which seems uncharacteristic for her, given that she's still in cahoots to get rid of Angie, and because Angie visited Leah's mother and pretended to be her. I think the dynamic between Leah and Raymond's ex Alex is an interesting wrinkle to add to her character arc, but overall, Leah is the villain that you would love to hate. Next is Raymond Dupont. Raymond is Leah's husband, and for the larger part of the season, his storyline and purpose for the show has been non-existent. Just a few episodes ago, we learned that Teddy has control of Raymond's company, and at one point, there was some sort of agreement for Raymond to eventually buy back the company, but it's not going to happen. So Raymond is resorting to using other means to take Teddy down. Now, why does Raymond want to take Teddy down? Is it really just because he wants his company back, or are there more ambitious plans at stake? Because Raymond knows how much Leah loves Teddy, even after she tried to force him to retire in the beginning of the season. And getting rid of Teddy may have a domino effect on Raymond and Leah's already rocky marriage. If that is true, then Raymond will just be another person trying to get his hands on Franklin Holding. Lawrence Dupont is the next character. Throughout the earlier parts of the season, Lauren reminded me of a mix between Jamal and Andre. Now, the bread and butter of her storyline was hiding a same-sex relationship from the family and society, while also being unhinged and having unpredictable outbursts at random times. When she meets Nikki for the first time, there seems to be an immediate animosity shown that doesn't seem to be warranted for her character. Not much else is really known about Lauren, outside of her being spoiled as hell, but as of right now, I'm willing to bet that she has some sort of undiagnosed mental health issue, and it will work against her as she continues to go after Nikki. Quentin Dupont is who I consider to be the forgotten Dupont. He has the fewest scenes out of everyone in the family and the least amount of character development. I mean, truth be told, all I really know about Quincy was that he's always taken a liking to Nikki, and Raymond wants him to follow in his footsteps. My spider sense tells me that his character will be completely written off, or he's the worst Dupont out of all of them. But as the saying goes, you gotta watch the quiet ones. Olivia Dupont is the next character. The show really hasn't revealed much to her depth as a character. Yes, she's Raymond's mother, as well as a longtime resident of the Oak Bluffs community. And yes, she has a disdain for Angie, as well as a need to protect Raymond. But what else does she have going on? If you ask me, Olivia reminds me of the black Elena Tyrell from Game of Thrones. She cares about her own family, as well as helping them rise to the top, no matter what cost. But she's a strategist, and she seizes the opportunity to align her house with other powerful houses. I would definitely like to see her character arc progress as the season goes on. Now we're on to Tyreek Chapman. In my opinion, Tyreek's character is a combination of Malcolm Devereaux and Frida Gatz from Empire. I picked these two characters from Empire because Tyreek is essentially hired by the DuPonts to keep an eye on Angie, and because Teddy took Tyreek under his wing after Tyreek's father died under circumstances which later turned out to be a lie. I still strongly believe that Teddy had more to do with the death of Tyreek's father than he's letting on, and when Tyreek truly finds out the truth, there will be huge implications for the show going forward. And last but not least, we have Taylor. In my opinion, Taylor is one of the most peculiar characters on the show, mainly because of how inconsistent her character arc has been over the course of these episodes. We as the audience are first introduced to Taylor as the friend of Lauren and Quincy. But yeah, I could definitely tell she was gay early on. And given how close she was with Lauren, I was all but certain that they were lovers. But as you all know, Lauren tries to kill Taylor and almost succeeds in doing so. But the police become involved, and while Taylor initially identifies Lauren as the attempted murderer, Taylor is somehow convinced to change her story and convinced to not pursue any charges against Lauren. Now, did this happen because the Duponts made threats against her or her loved ones, or did they promise her money and opportunities? That part is unsure, but what is for sure is that Taylor went back to being in love with Lauren. And after all, nothing says I love you like trying to push you out of a moving boat with the intent to kill you. But for Taylor, that wasn't a bridge too far. The bridge too far was how Lauren embarrassed Nikki at the claimant ceremony. In other words, attempted murder is forgivable, but hurting Nikki's feelings? Oh no, that crosses the line. Furthermore, it's kinda hard for Taylor to be a sympathetic character. She not only cheated on Lauren, but she cheated on Lauren with her cousin and paraded it all over social media. One could argue that Taylor may have done this so to intentionally hurt Lauren. But then again, why would you want to play games with someone who has a powerful family and who tried to kill you not too long ago? But I digress. Overall, outside of these similarities and with Empire, what disappoints me about Our Kind of People is that it abandons the topics of generational wealth, addressing mental health support in the Black community, finding common ground between wealthy and non-wealthy Blacks, and historical events like Juneteenth to go after dramatic over-the-top story arcs. I think a movie like Jumping the Broom is a prime example of how a cinematic project can successfully address some of these same issues without including any unnecessary drama, because they felt it would keep the viewer's attention. I'm also not a fan of the pacing of the storytelling for the show. They are seemingly doing too much too soon with the influx of characters for the first season. A show like Empire could get away with it because they had fewer characters to work with, and they focused on the development of very specific, meaningful storylines. Our Kind of People seems to be a little all over the place, and I want to support it past the first season, but it also has to do a better job in my opinion. But this marks the end of my video, and I definitely want to know what you thought about my analysis of the characters and the show itself. All opinions are welcome here, so feel free to leave a comment and I'll most definitely reply to it. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.